Well, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls, and everybody out there on the interwebs of the internet, this is Security Sidebar. My name's John Wagnon, and this is going to be one of our DevCentral Connects live shows. And I gotta say that normally it's Jason Ram and I doing our DevCentral Connect show each week. But we're going to mix it up a little bit. We're going to say, hey, DevCentral Connects maybe one week. And then I'm gonna start this show where we talk about all things security. And then Jason may have his own time as well, where he's in by himself talking about some other really cool technology. But never fear, we are still going to be together on shows. And but this one is the Security Sidebar show. So I wanted to start this one off. This is the inaugural, the maiden voyage of this thing. So I'm excited to see everybody here today. But I wanted to start off and say, why is cybersecurity so important? And really at the heart of it all, we have to take a step back and we have to say, we are all human beings, right? We are all human and we value certain things. And we value things like our lives. We value our livelihoods, right? We value our relationships. We value our privacy. We value our freedom. All of these things. Whenever you talk about cybersecurity and you don't talk about the fact that we are human first, then I think you miss the whole foundational point of the entire discussion. And so we have to start off by saying we are human first. And there are certain things that are fundamental to us as humans that we value. Now, how does cybersecurity start to play a role in all that? And the answer is that all those things I just mentioned, the privacy and the livelihoods and all of those things, the things that we value, have now gone online. They all live on the internet these days, right? And so that makes cybersecurity just a fundamentally important part of our lives every single day. All right. So I wanted to say, that at the very beginning to just kind of set the stage here. I also wanted to say from an administrative note, we are live today on YouTube, and we're live on Facebook, and we're live on LinkedIn, and we're live on Periscope. And, I guess you name it, we're live out there, right? So we're loving it today. I will have a chance to interact with whoever might be watching out there today. So you can post a comment, whether it's on YouTube or LinkedIn or anything. And so I'll just pull up a couple. Pytil, ready to rumble, my man. This is fantastic stuff. So great to see you out there. Boo Lamb is out there on LinkedIn, loving this thing. So we love you right back, Boo and Daryl show. So great to see all you guys. I see Leslie out there ready to do this thing. We've got Pasilva out there, always helping out in the comments. I really appreciate that. It's time to do this thing. All right. So you can interact with me on any of those different platforms, and we'd be excited to interact with you during this time. All right. So as we get into security today, I wanted to start with, again, just some basic stuff and talk about how security and cybersecurity specifically is a very complex field because there's so many parts and pieces to this whole thing, right? And it's hard to find someone that's an expert in the entire thing. I mean, I would challenge you to find someone that knows everything about everything, right? So there's just so much involved in this. And I mean, it goes everything from the way you structure your organization to the way you develop processes to the technology that you employ. All these different kinds of things play a part in security, right? And so doing that correctly is a challenge. And I would dare say that most organizations don't do that correctly, or they certainly fall short in certain areas. So while certain organizations don't implement all the cybersecurity parts and pieces correctly, then at the same time, so that creates like some risks and some vulnerabilities, right? At the same time, you also actively have attackers who are trying to like blow the whole thing up. And so I was trying to think of a good analogy on this. And one that I kind of came up with is, let's say you're a parent and you're wanting to feed your child who is hungry and screaming and crying, right? So you got a kid over here and they're screaming, crying, they need food. And so you go over to the stove and you're starting to kind of make the food for them. And while you're in the midst of grabbing the ingredients and all that, the child is like throwing dirt in the middle of the ingredients and running around the house and the kitchen and not being obedient or whatever, right? And so you're trying to like balance all these things all at the same time. And all the while you've got, a robber outside stealing your car out of the driveway or whatever. So it's just like craziness all at the same time. So it's a difficult environment, this cybersecurity field. But we're going to break it down, and we're going to kind of start from a basic perspective, and we're going to build out all the parts and pieces and what that looks like. All right. So to start off with, I'm going to say that you've got in the world of web applications, you've got a device at the heart of it all. You've got a device that tries to connect or does connect to a web server, right? And whenever you hit, you type in devcentral.f5.com or example.com or whatever it is, right? And you hit go on your device, then there are many, many things that happen along the way. There are DNS lookups. There are different, layers of connections, like TCP layer connections. There are TLS level connections and handshakes. There are firewalls in place. There's all these different technologies, that may be in line there, or that are in play in this entire, interaction or experience. And so sometimes it's really easy in the field of cybersecurity to say, hey, maybe I know a lot about a network layer firewall, but like that's about it or whatever, right? What I want to do in this show over the course of time is to kind of break down each of those things and say, hey, let's look at the big picture. Let's look at different attacks that happen. Let's look at different malware that may be out there. But in order to understand those things, you need to understand the underlying, foundation of what those things are built on, right? And so we're gonna do that in this show. So as you tune into future episodes, we'll kind of take some of these things piece by piece, and we'll just walk through this journey together. We're also going to talk about things like current events. And different things that are happening in the world around us that might affect cybersecurity. And they play a role in the security posture of our organization. So we'll certainly take a look at current events and those kinds of things. And then, we're gonna walk this journey together, right? I want you to help me, and I want to help you in this whole process. Stay like right there at the tip of the spear of this cybersecurity field. Right. So I want to interact with you. I want to have a conversation. I'd love for some of you to even come on the show as a guest, and we can dial you in and say, hey, here's my thoughts, here's my expertise, and you let us know what you think. Right. Okay. So I just wanted to lay that whole thing out there and give a little expectation about what this security sidebar is going to be. So we're going to dig into the technology of it all. We're going to dig into the current events of it all. We're going to look at, attacks and malware and just all kinds of different stuff. If it's cybersecurity related, we're going to talk about it here on this show. I was going to mention as well, I've got a series of articles out on DevCentral, and I'm just going to pull these up really quick. Got a series of articles on DevCentral called the Security Sidebar. And I'll go through just a couple of these really quick. One that I posted was Security Sidebar, what's real and what's fake. And this gets into like some of that deep fake technology where, if you have a picture or you have a video, let's say, of an active robber or, some kind of a crime scene, and it's like, hey, what's some of the most powerful evidence that a court can hear in terms of convicting or acquitting, the defendant, kind of a thing. It's video evidence, right? Well, what if it's deep fake video, right? What if the primary evidence is deep fake? Well, how do you know it's deep fake? This stuff is getting super real. And if you don't know about the deep fake, it's where you can basically take someone else's like face and all that and put it on someone else's body, and then the sound and all that looks extremely, extremely real, right? So like that's a great example of something that we may talk about here on this show, like what's real and what's fake. Right? Here's another one. Your device just attacked someone and you didn't even know it. This was one where I was talking about some networked printers or other network devices, and they can be used as these bots in a botnet of a large scale DDoS attack. Right? So you got a big DDoS attack going on, and your printer may be a part of this whole thing, and you didn't even know it. Right? All right, so here's a couple of other ones, and I'm not going to go through every single one of these. Support your local security conference. We'll get into things like that in the show, where we talk about, what is a security conference? Why does it matter? How can you get involved? What are some things you can learn? That kind of thing. So anyway, all right. So those are some cool ones. I'm gonna talk about this one super quick. Will the real Satoshi Nakamoto please stand up? And this was just a fascinating story back in like 2008. So there was some like Bitcoin kind of stuff and all that going on, and it was just fascinating stuff. So anyway, so those are some of the things that we may talk about again in this show. All right, I wanted to highlight in the I guess in the vein of real world activities or current events. I wanted to just highlight one quick story today. And we're not going to spend a ton of time today. By the way, these shows, we'll probably have them at about 30 minutes or so, and then that's about it, because I don't want to take too much crazy time. Although if people start to interact and all that, then we'll take as much time as we need. All right. So the story that I wanted to highlight here is that literally just a few days ago, Honda, the car manufacturer, was shut down after a cyber attack. All right, and this was a ransomware attack that came after a couple of different Honda factories. One was in Ohio, and one was in, let me just check really quick, Ohio and Turkey, the country of Turkey, over in Europe, Asia kind of area. All right, so effectively what this ransomware did is it infected the networks. It was coming very specifically after some internal DNS hosts on the Honda network. And it basically said, hey, we're going to shut down some of your like control systems that you use to build these cars. So Honda comes out with a response to that and says, let's let everybody know that no personally identifiable information was leaked on this thing, which is good, right? But at the same time, they're like, hey, we had to shut down our plants. And I think proactively they said, if we can't make cars and we know that there's ransomware happening out there, then let's shut down like our financial systems and our HR systems and all that stuff as well. So it's so this was a great example of ransomware, which is where an attacker is going to send this malicious software to your employees, and one of them is going to like double click and open the file or click on that bad link or whatever, and it's going to infect your network with this malware. And then once the malware has infected your network, then it's going to go in and it's going to try to encrypt all of these different files. And so it just turns into this big mess. So anyway, so that's just a good example of literally just a couple of days ago, something that happened to the auto manufacturer Honda. So yeah, and then I noticed here Pasilva, the Volvo ad is right next to the Honda cyber attack. I love that. It's that's some strategic marketing, right? That's a great call out. So on that webpage, a lot of marketing companies will do that. They'll be like, hey, Honda, our competitor was just the victim of a cyber attack. Why don't we buy some ad space on the page that's going to show their the bad behavior against their company. So yeah, it's a great point. And then Paul Deacon, I wanted to highlight your comment as well. How about determining what is accurate on social media? Man, what a great topic that is and could be and will be. And absolutely, we'll talk about that. How do you know what's right on social media? Man, it just seems like nowadays there's so many things that are fake or twisted or whatever it is for a variety of reasons. But are there ways that we as consumers of this information can guard ourselves against that, or maybe maybe teach ourselves how to be better stewards of the information that we receive? How can we double check that something's true? Those kinds of things. So that is that's a phenomenal one. And I would point out too, just like Pete Silva just said, DevCentral is always true. That's exactly right. There's no faking on DevCentral. So good stuff, man. Good stuff. DevCentral is always leading the way. All right. So in the case of the like the Honda ransomware or some of those examples that I showed you on articles that I've written in the past, I wanted to give you a little bit of a flavor of some things that we would talk about here on this show. and certainly interact with everyone. But anyway, the place that I thought that we would start, and we won't do this today because I really want to dive into this, kind of in some good detail. But the place that I thought that we would start is back what I talked about a second ago, that basic point of an end device connecting to a web server, right? And how does all that work? And so certainly many people that might watch the show, know the details of how that happens, but many people may not, right? And so I want to kind of step through, when you type in that web address and you hit go, then what happens? And it's a fascinating process. And it's also fascinating to me that, that all of this happens so quickly. And it's also fascinating that inherently there's no like one big government body necessarily, or one big organization that controls the whole thing. We talk about the internet is just kind of this mismatch of built pieces and parts, and they're kind of band-aided together, and parts of it, like DNS was developed way back, goodness, it's been 40 plus years ago, right? Or the HTTP protocol itself is very, very, it's very old with respect to computer technology, those kinds of things. And so how does all that stuff work together from a security standpoint? But then I always want to take this back, and I always want to build it or place it back on the foundation of what we talked about with we are humans first. Like, why do we care about this thing? So, back on the Honda example, why does Honda care that they were the victim of a ransomware attack? And I mean, that's a pretty simple question, or it's a pretty obvious question. But when you really dig down deep into that, you say it's because we're human and because we value things, right? And the things that we place value on are now under threat, and we want to fix that, and we want to keep those from being threatened. And that's really the heart of what we're trying to do here with the Security Sidebar, is not only educate everyone on what's going on in the world today with respect to cybersecurity, but also to say, hey, let's learn how we can be better stewards of this internet that we, interact with every day. And, how can we avoid some of these attacks that are going to be coming in? Because, you read about them all the time. You type in cyber attack on Google and just hit go, you're going to find things like the Honda thing that just happened not too long ago. So anyway, so there's a lot that's going on out there in the world of cybersecurity. So from the perspective of the Security Sidebar show, I just wanted to say that this, again, we'll have this show like about every other week or so. We'll have our DevCentral Connects show, and we'll still do that every other week as well. So continue to tune in to these shows, and we want to interact with everyone out there. I do also want to give a big shout out to a special member of the DevCentral team here today, and talk about a man that we all like to call Rodrigo Albuquerque. Rodrigo Albuquerque lives over in London, jolly old London, England area town, and he's been on the DevCentral team as our DevOps expert. He's written a ton of articles. He's done a lot of great work to make this team even better than what it was before he got here. He's leaving us in a better place than he found us. And so, like I said, he is moving on to bigger and better things. And I just want to say thanks to Rodrigo for all the work and all the camaraderie and just team spirit that you've brought to the DevCentral team. We're going to miss you, my man. And we wish you nothing but the best as you go on to your next adventures. And if you want to ever send me any little, trinkets or toys or gifts at your next place, feel free to do that. I'm always here, always willing to take those from you. So good to go, man. We're going to miss you. Thanks for everything. All righty. And so back really quick, I just saw this comment from Sarah Body on the Honda ransomware attack. It's snake malware, targets ICS SCADA systems. Yep, and it also hit Enel Argentina, an energy company. Yeah, so you're right. The snake malware, snake ransomware was identified, I guess, kind of around the end of 2019. And one guy, they interviewed some different people about this snake ransomware, which is the thing that hit the Honda plant, by the way. And this fascinates me as well. The snake ransomware specifically was actually not that sophisticated in nature. And man, I guess if you go back, I'm not saying all malware is not sophisticated, but there have been some major disruptive events in the world of cybersecurity by malware that's just not that well written. It's not that sophisticated, right? I mean, you go way back in time to like the I love you virus or like the Melissa virus or that kind of stuff, right? And it's like that, it wasn't that sophisticated, but it made such a huge impact. So anyway, but yeah, you're right. Snake, it was the Snake ransomware, not that sophisticated, but it was interesting in that it had functionality that was programmed into it that would forcibly stop these processes on industrial control systems. So these ICS systems or SCADA systems. And so it was very targeted toward these, ICS SCADA type systems, which is why it made such a huge effect on the Honda processing or plants specifically. So anyway, and that's another cool thing. I mean, I appreciate, Sarah, I appreciate you bringing that up. That's another really cool thing on ransomware or malware or whatever. Some of this stuff is very targeted toward very specific targets, right? Whereas some of it could be just like, hey, anybody wants to download this thing, I'll take it, kind of a deal. I'm trying to steal all your money or whatever it is. But some of them in this case is like, I'm going after ICS and SCADA type systems. So here I am, Wagnon typing away on my computer at home or whatever. This one's probably not going to affect me that much, right? So anyway, so it's good to know that not all malware, not all ransomware is built the same. It's not all targeting the exact same, target. So anyway, Marcus Phillips, thanks for the comment, my man. People education is half the battle. They need to be less clicky. Exactly. That's exactly right. So stop clicking on stuff, everybody. Marcus said it, and I believe it. And it's a good stuff. It's a good thing to put into practice. And we'll talk about that kind of stuff too. I mean, all these are great topics. And so, the heart of this initial security sidebar is me kind of giving you a flavor of like, hey, these are some of the topics that we're going to address. So things like what Paul Deacon said about accuracy of information on social media. Let's take a show and let's just do that. And that's it, right? Talk about the things that would be related to that. Or why don't you click on every single link that you get on an email or, on a website or whatever, right? Well, there's reasons for that. Or how can you know that the link that you're about to click on is actually legitimate or not? And then, this is it's a tough balance that we live in our world today, because it's, you may get some email from maybe your HR department at work saying, hey, it's time to do your annual appraisal or your annual review or whatever, or, where you've been selected for a promotion or something like that. And those are legitimate emails. And they want you to click, let's say it's an annual review or annual, appraisal type time. And you need to click on a link to get to the HR system and fill out all your stuff. Well, that's a legitimate thing. But then you're going to get an email right after that saying, hey, you've won this thing and you need to click on this link to come, collect your earnings or whatever it is. Well, you need to not click on that thing. How in the world do you know the difference? Well, the good news is there's some really good ways and some fairly easy and practical ways to know that kind of stuff. So we can take a show and talk about that. We'll take a show and talk about the, again, more of the technical stuff, like how does TLS work, like the TLS handshake? How does, all the different encryption that happens within TLS, how does that stuff work? What does it mean to have a Diffie-Hellman ephemeral key exchange? What does it mean to have AES with Galois counter mode as your bulk encryption? What does that even mean? What is a secure hash algorithm anyway? What is a message authentication code? What is a certificate authority? Is that stuff important? What is certificate pinning? What is HSTS, the HTTP strict transport security? What is all that stuff, and why does it matter, and why should you care, and all that stuff, right? So we want to dig into all that stuff. We want to explain it, and we want people to know how it works, right? So that's what we're going to do. All right, another one with with Sarah. Great comment here. Interesting PR response focusing on no PII loss when the point of ransomware is to lock down systems to get paid. Exactly right. It is interesting that I think maybe kind of the knee-jerk reaction from a lot of companies today is if we get hit with anything, then we are going to very quickly, if we possibly can, we're going to say, hey, no PII was stolen. All of our customers, everybody relax. We're not the Equifax, data breach or whatever. And so, so that's another part of this whole security conversation is how do you handle the public relations responses if you are the victim of a cyber attack? And frankly, I would dare say that you should think about that well in advance of being the victim of a cyber attack, right? You need to sit down as a company and say, if and when we are hit, what are we going to say? What is our, what's our game plan? So have at least an outline, a template, something already built, before you get hit. So anyway, great comment there on the PR response with PII and ransomware. So anyway, well, good stuff, man. All right, I know we're almost at the 30 minutes. It feels like it just went by, bam, about that fast, right? It feels like that for me. I'm sure it feels like that for all of you too. And I'm sure all of you are sitting out there right now thinking, man, I just wish John would keep on talking for like hours and hours and hours. And let me tell you, I feel you. I wish I would talk for hours and hours too, but we all got, jobs we got to get back to, and we've all got lives we need to live. But I just appreciate all of you being here with me today. It's really cool to be connected like this and be able to comment via YouTube, via LinkedIn, Periscope, all the different stuff, Facebook. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. Look for the Security Sidebar show to start to happen on a regular basis. And we're going to dig into these topics. One thing that I would ask is, I know I've mentioned a lot of different topics here today on things that we will cover along the way as we take this journey together. But if there's something that you want me to start off with, like what Paul Deacon said, hey, how can we know if social media information is accurate or not? Those are awesome, and we'll start to dig into topics that you guys want to hear. So anyway, so I would just say, be a good steward of the internet that we are blessed to have and work with every day, and be a safe internet user and learn everything you can. I'm going to learn from you. You learn, I guess, from me as much as you can. And let's stay safe out there. So thanks for watching this Security Sidebar live stream show. This is one of many that I hope will be a great experience for all of us. And thanks for being here. We'll see you guys next time.